Did Tommy Tallarico just blame Intellivision? Let's talk about it. But before we get into this, let me just do a small profile on Amore Equipment Finance. Amore has been in business for over 25 years. It employs over 140 employees. It also has a 4.3 out of 5-star rating with Google after almost 700 ratings. So what we have here is an established company with mostly good reviews. Intellivision Entertainment, on the other hand, hasn't been firmly established. It looks like a company on the verge of collapse, and I could not find any Google reviews for it as a business. So let's get to the story. On February 26, 2021, Tommy Tallarico signed an agreement with Amore Equipment Finance to finance over $130,000 in office equipment for Intellivision Entertainment, with payments spread across 60 months. He gave Amore access to Intellivision's bank account for direct debit transactions and signed himself as the personal guarantee, possibly due to Intellivision Entertainment not having enough credit themselves as an LLC to finance such a large amount. The contract Tommy signed stated he couldn't cancel or terminate the equipment finance agreement for any reason, and that Tommy himself would be personally, absolutely, unconditionally guarantee all the payments. On April 15, 2021, he signed for receipt of the financed equipment. On December 12, 2022, only 21 months into the 60-month agreement, Amore filed suit against both Intellivision Entertainment and Tommy Tallarico for failure to pay, with around $110,000 still owed, plus requested interest and attorney fees. On February 8, 2023, Tommy Tallarico filed his defense with a whopping total of 22 separate defenses. This could be a smart move, as it may cause extra burden to Amore by paying their lawyers to have to counter every one of the 22 claims, or it could prove harmful if Tommy Tallarico was ordered to pay for Amore's legal fees in the end. So let's dig into the excuses, but please know that I'm not a legal expert, so this is for entertainment purposes only, but I do welcome anyone with legal expertise to weigh in the comments below. So the first defense says that the complaint fails to sufficiently state a cause of action upon which relief can be granted against the defendant. So basically, from what I understand, what this is saying is even if what Amore says is true, there's no legal case against Tommy. I don't know how that works, but that's kind of, I think, what they're getting at. The second defense, lack of enforceable personal guarantee. I'm not sure why, but I guess the lawyers are saying that the guarantee Tommy signed is not enforceable for reasons. The third defense, no consideration. The purported personal guarantee fails for lack of consideration. So the state of California has a document that kind of explains what several defenses are. So I'm going to be referring to that from time to time, and that's where the case is taking place. And this is what the state of California says. This says, lack of consideration. You may use this defense if the goods or products you purchased were so defective that enforcement of the contract would be unreasonable and unfair. So I guess either somehow the office equipment is somehow defective, or maybe the service was defected. I'm not sure. The fourth defense, conditions precedent. Plaintiff's claims against defendant is barred because plaintiff has failed to fully pursue Intellivision Entertainment LLC before pursuing the defendant, before pursuing Tommy. So here they are kind of throwing Intellivision under the bus, even though it is possible that Amore sent notices to the office, but the office isn't open anymore. And now they're going after the guy who co-signed the loan and is still listed as the president of the company on the website. Makes sense to me. Fifth defense. Plaintiff's claim against defendant is barred to the extent that the defendant materially altered the original debt, if any, of Intellivision Entertainment, including but not limited to changing the price of goods financed by the original debt, if any, entering into a novation of the original debt, if any. So I guess they're claiming here that Amore changed the contract that they signed. However, there would have to be proof of this, and there's no proof for any of these claims. None at least have been made public. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, but we just don't see, well, what exactly did they change? Show us. The sixth defense. Plaintiff's claim against defendant is barred because plaintiff failed to notify defendant of the sale of the office equipment at issue. Okay, I don't know if California's law states that someone who has something repossessed needs to be notified or not, so this might be a nothing burger. Maybe there's something there. Seventh defense. Failure to hold a commercially reasonable sale. Plaintiff's claim against defendant is barred because plaintiff failed to hold a commercially reasonable sale of the office equipment at issue. In the complaint, plaintiff alleges that it financed equipment to the defendant for over $180,000 in February 2021, and after about 1 year, it sold the same equipment for only $5,544.48. This sham sale, I'm laughing seeing the term sham sale in the legal document, was not commercially reasonable. Now, let me just say, first of all, I can already poke holes in this one because the agreement was for furniture or equipment, that was valued at about $131,000. So the $180,000, that would include the interest, I suppose. But so, that's already a false comparison to say that it was worth 180. It was the retail value of the equipment through them was $131,000. But a lot of you could probably see the irony of Tommy calling somebody else's actions a sham. Let's stick to the case, though. Amore has been around for quite a while, so I'm going to assume that they know how to do repossessions, that they repossess stuff, and they do appropriate sales or auctions that are on the up and up. But if they did something, like sell it back to themselves or someone else at a severely discounted rate, kind of under the table, that sounds like legal wrongdoing. But of course, there's no proof to back up that happened, at least not at this point in time. Defense number 8. Plaintiff's claim against defendant is barred because plaintiff was negligent in its administration of financing. Plaintiff's negligence is connection with the administration of financing increased the scope of the defendant's risk beyond the risk that the defendant originally intended to assume, if any. So somehow this deal, from what I understand, is saying that by the way, Tommy signed off on, it's Amore's fault. It's Amore's fault. Like Tommy didn't understand what he was getting into. I don't get this one. Okay, 9th defense. Plaintiff's claim against defendant is barred because plaintiff had a duty to pursue Intellivision Entertainment before Tommy. Blaming it on Intellivision is so nice he does it twice, and I'm assuming Amore pursued, i.e., but like I said before, they moved without giving Amore updated info or even payments. 10th defense. Plaintiff's claim against defendant is barred from doctrine of waiver, estoppel, and or unclean hands. So let's go back to that document I found from the state of California. So waiver and estoppel, these two defenses are closely related. They are based on the concept if someone says one thing but does another, he or she may be held to what they first said. If the plaintiff was told or promised you something regarding money you are being sued for and you relied upon that statement of promise, but the plaintiff failed to honor it, these defenses may apply to you. In unclean hands, the law requires those coming into court seeking justice to do justice themselves. This concept is called clean hands. If you believe the plaintiff has taken advantage of his or her own wrongdoing in relation to the lawsuit, you may raise this defense. So yeah, 3 for 1 here. Basically, from what I understand, Amore didn't keep their end of a deal, something that they said they didn't do, or somehow taking advantage of Tommy Tallarico, who co-signed for the loan. Just keep throwing the defenses up, you guys. Maybe one will stick. 11th defense, latches. Any recovery on the complaint or claim for relief contained therein is barred from the doctrine of latches, giving plaintiffs unjustified delay in prosecuting this action to the detriment of the defendant. So latches, here's what the California document says. A law requires people to act promptly to enforce their rights. If the plaintiff waited too long to file a lawsuit without having good reason for the delay, and the delay made it harder for you to defend the case, this defense may apply to you. So I guess he's saying Amore waited too long, but seeing that the loan hadn't even finished, it was a 60-month loan, and they responded within 21 months. They didn't wait till the loan was due or whatever, fully due. I don't see how this one holds. Okay, 12th defense. In paro delicto. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but from what I understand, this defense simply means that both parties are equally at fault, so throw this case out. So I don't think this one is true. 13th affirmative defense. Plaintiff's claim against defendant fails and the plaintiff is barred from recovery because any injuries or damages alleged by the plaintiff, if any, were the result of a new independent intervening or superseding causes that are unrelated to the defendant's conduct. Any actions on the part of the defendant was not proximate or producing cause of any alleged injuries or damages plaintiff claims were sustained. So it's not Tommy's fault. It's Intellivision's fault, right? Or maybe COVID or Nintendo or the haters, but it's not Tommy's fault. 14th defense, comparative fault. The right of the plaintiff, if any exists, is reduced and limited to the percentage of fault attributable to the defendant pursuant to the applicable law. So now, they're saying Tommy, previously they said Tommy's not at fault, but now if he is, it's not for the full amount. He's not fully at fault, even though he co-signed it. So he might only be 10% at fault. So he'll pay 10% of the damages. Let's keep throwing up these defenses. Number 15. If the plaintiff has suffered damages or injuries or otherwise entitled to any damages, the negligence of plaintiff by reason of his own acts, omissions, representations, and of course conduct were contributing proximate cause of said damages or injuries. So now it's not Tommy's fault, it's Amore's fault somehow. It's somehow Amore's fault that they set up an agreement, that they delivered their product, that Tommy signed on it, and Intellivision stopped paying. Somehow that's Amore's fault. 16th affirmative defense, plaintiff consisted to any and all conduct, actions, and or statements by the defendant. So somehow Amore said it's okay if Tommy doesn't pay and doesn't live up to his co-signed agreement. I hope Tommy's lawyers have that in writing somehow. Okay, let's go to the 7th affirmative defense. This is lack of damages, failure to mitigate. Plaintiff is not entitled to recover any damages as a result of any alleged act or omission of defendant, even if the plaintiff has such entitlement. All or some portion of said damages were caused or attributed to the failure of the plaintiff to take reasonable action to mitigate said damages, if any. As such, plaintiff is barred in whole or part from obtaining or securing any damages from defendant, even if defendant is determined or found to have engaged in some unlawful conduct or acts towards the plaintiff, which the defendant wholly denies doing. So failure to mitigate. Here's what that California document said. Plaintiffs should not be able to collect money from you if they could have prevented the damage. For example, if you break a year-long lease, landlords are required to find a new tenant as soon as possible. You may still be responsible for the difference in the rent and the time the unit was not rented, but the landlord cannot just wait out the year and try to force you to pay a whole year's rent. So I guess what they're saying is, Amore, you could have stopped this somehow, got someone else to co-sign for this loan. I don't understand. 18th defense. Plaintiff is barred from recovery because any damages or injuries alleged in the complaint, if any, were the result of new, independent, intervening, or superseding causes that are unrelated to the conduct of the defendant. Any action on the part of the defendant was not proximate or producing cause of any alleged damages or injuries plaintiff claims were sustained. So this one kind of sounds like they're recycling a previous one, like blame Intellivision, blame COVID, don't blame Tommy, it's not his fault. 19th, waiver. Plaintiff's claim against defendant is barred from equitable doctrine of waiver as a result of the failure of the plaintiff to complain to defendant of any alleged misconduct. So I'm guessing Amore sent bills to Intellivision, which Tommy is the president of. At least that's what the website says. So I don't see how this is holding water that they didn't complain to the defendant. Tommy, being the president, should have been very well aware of what was going on. 20th defense. Plaintiff is barred in whole or part from recovering relief against defendant to the extent it knowingly misrepresented certain facts to the defendant. So I guess they didn't explain that the contract was legal somehow, or what was in the contract, or some, I don't know. 21st defense. A plaintiff is barred in whole or part from recovery relief against the defendant because such recovery would violate numerous public policies of the state of California, including but not limited to public policy set forth in California Labor Code sections 2800 and 2802. So these codes, from what I understand, talk about the employers paying for employees' work-related expenses. So that's right. Let's blame Intellivision again. They're my employer. They should pay, not me. But if they're out of money and you co-signed the loan, Tommy should pay. But he's the president, so why didn't they pay them already? Right? Okay, you're the president. You have some power in the company, then have the company pay. 22nd defense. Defendant incorporates by reference all affirmative defenses of Television Entertainment LLC may assert in this action. So what I get from this, and I could be wrong, but by the way, if Intellivision, when they respond, if they have any good defenses my lawyers haven't mentioned, I call dibs on on those defenses too. If they have a good one. Oh my goodness. Let's go to prayer for relief. This is basically where the defendant says what they hope the outcome is of this lawsuit. So Tommy hopes that the complaint would be dismissed without prejudice in its entirety, that the plaintiff take nothing by reason of the complaint, and that the judgment be entered against it and in the defendant's favor. The defendant be awarded his cost incurred in defending the action, including reasonable attorney fees, and the defendant be granted such other and further relief as the court may deem just and proper. So naturally, Tommy wants the case dismissed, Amor to pay Tommy's lawyers, and if the judge wants to give Tommy some extra money for all his troubles, that would be fine with him. This is going to be very interesting to see how this turns out. I want to give a shout out to Gen X Gamer. He did a video on this talking about, and that's what inspired this in part. And I want to also give a shout out to Paraclaw over at the Intellivision _Amico subreddit for posting these publicly available documents. He said basically, okay, Tommy's blaming Intellivision, and now in further legal actions, we might hear what Intellivision says when they file their defense. If they do, they might throw Tommy under the bus. So this could be very interesting how this turns out. Now again, I'm not a lawyer, and maybe there's proof that Amor has done some wrongdoing, but based on what I've seen so far, based on what has been publicly shown, it seems that it's pretty clear Tommy Tallarico owes Amor money. Tommy Tallarico co-signed for the loan. Intellivision stopped making payments, so now Tommy is on the hook. You lose, good day, sir. And his lawyers are just throwing up as many defenses as possible to see if one sticks. Which you never know, it could work. But look at the bright side. Even if Tommy loses, maybe he can contact Guinness to see if he can get a world record for the most defenses presented in a single case. That's just my 2 cents. Let me know your opinions in the comments below. Go ahead, click like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.